handpicking each song with care because we really do care. And we believe that music discovery unlocks the potential of music to move and inspire. Dig in deeper with us on 89.9 HD4, the WJCT app, or on jacksmusic.org.
Hear from some of the biggest newsmakers in the community on First Coast Connect, where we discuss the issues and stories that affect your life all across the First Coast. We also ask for your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Engagement is what drives this program, so engage with us right now as we get started here in just a few minutes on First Coast Connect. But first, the news.
And good morning. It's 1 minute after 9. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. An administrative law judge has rejected a challenge to Florida Department of Education rules designed to increase the scrutiny of books in schools. Margie Menzel has details.
Judge Darren Schwartz issued an order that dismissed the challenge by the Florida Education Association Teachers Union. The case involved two rules designed to carry out a 2022 state law. One requires online training for school librarians and other employees involved in selecting books for students. The other rule requires elementary schools to post online lists of reading materials. The 2022 law referred to books and materials in a, quote, school library media center, unquote. The Florida Education Association argued that the department improperly applied the requirements to books and materials in classrooms. The union contended that DOE had overstepped its authority. But Schwartz wrote that the department's definition of library media center to include classrooms was consistent with the law. I'm Margie Menzel.
Drivers should expect overnight ramp closures next week as part of the Florida Department of Transportation's ongoing interchange project at I-295 and Roosevelt Boulevard on Jacksonville's west side. The I-295 South exit ramp to Roosevelt Boulevard will be closed from 9 to 6 overnight Sunday through Wednesday to complete a traffic shift. A heat advisory in effect today from 11 until 6. It's now 82 degrees in Jacksonville. Temperatures getting to the mid-90s this afternoon, mostly sunny and hot with a chance of showers and storms after 2. 40% chance of storms tonight in the upper 70s.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Opinions expressed on the Friday Media Roundtable are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News.
Hey, it's Al Letson, and you are listening to First Coast Connect, and we've got a full show today, so let's get to it. On the agenda, Mayor Deegan is sworn in. Construction is set to begin at the Riverfront Plaza again. The Duval County Public Schools is looking to cut costs. Good morning, and live with me from the WJCT studios, we've got a whole panel for our Friday roundup. Afterwards, we have a live performance from musician Connor Hickey. But first, in this hour, it's Friday, and with the roundup to talk about today's news, the news of the week, we've got Hannah Holthouse from the Florida Times Union. Hannah, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. This is the first time I've meeting you, so it's nice to have you in the studio.
Great to be here.
Then we've got Claire Heddles. Claire, did I say your name right?
You did.
Boom! I worked on it. I worked really, really hard.
Thank you.
Claire is with Jacksonville today. Then we've got, I was going to give Dan a nickname, but he is shooting a look of daggers at me right now.
Look.
You're lying. That was a look, Dan. That was a look. Dan Scanlon of WJCT News. How are you, my friend?
I am fine, thank you.
And regular contributor, and I have to say, I've known this man for over 20 years, and he is my very dear friend, Mr. Charles Griggs.
Good morning, Al. Welcome home.
Thank you. 20 years, dude. Can you imagine? That's crazy.
It's some time.
That means we getting old.
You getting old.
Very true. Very true. So listen, you can listen live on the radio or watch on our video stream right now on Facebook or YouTube. You can call us at 549-2837 or tweet us at FCC on air. Email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or message us on the First Coast Connect Facebook page. And my people, my lovely, beautiful people, please stay on subject. If we're talking about something, you should call in about that thing, not the thing that's really been bothering you crazy all week. We'll do another show on that. Okay, so let's begin. Mayor Donna Deegan was sworn in last Saturday in front of a large, diverse crowd. But what will happen in her first few weeks of office? What are they going to look like? So, Hannah, I want to start with you. Since you covered portions of the inauguration, also spoke to the mayor about her budget, which will be presented pretty soon.
So soon. And that is definitely a point of stress for any new administration, because the thing in Jacksonville is that they take office and then they pretty much immediately have to start in their new budget. So she's got a lot of work to do pretty quickly. From her inauguration, she continuously put out her new initiatives, not new, but from the campaign. And then in her budget, she's going to have a little bit of time to try and squeeze in some of her projects. So she wants to get septic tanks done. However, that's a project that's been long going.
Yep.
And so in order to do that, she's going to have to convince a lot of people, and then she's going to have to figure out the timeline for something like that. But we can probably expect to see some septic tank removal in her budget. We can also expect some small business initiatives in her budget. And then she's trying to put in some new team members for her administration that have not been in previous administrations. So she's going to try and put those positions in as well.
Claire, what do you see the big barriers to the agenda that Mayor Deegan has in front of her?
Well, she's coming off of Mayor Lenny Curry's administration, and I think what she pitched throughout her campaign, and again at the inauguration speech, is this focus on local business, building up small businesses, whereas I think Curry's goal, and I think what her opponent's goal during the race was really bringing in outside businesses, bringing in large corporations to be based here. So I think that's a bit of a pivot to this for the city to focus on building up small businesses rather than this sort of attract out approach that I think was previously in the administration.
Yeah, and Dan, on the city council, what kind of barriers do you think she's going to face there?
Well, it's still mostly Republican. It's mostly male. It's a good old boys club in many ways. There's enough veterans on board. You've got a father and son who might break some log jams as council members, the Carlucci's. But I think that's an issue right there. And then obviously some of them are very well prepared for budgets. They've done it before. They've seen Curry's. Others, it's a learning curve. We have a lot of new council members there, and they're going to have to learn very quickly what it takes when the budget is presented, when the budget is discussed, how you get rid of things, how you add things, how you modify things.
Mm-hmm. And Charles, this one is for you, but I'd like everybody to kind of comment on this one. So I have been away from Jacksonville for a little bit of time. As I was in California, I was seeing that Mayor Deegan was running. And I thought, great, but I thought, that's not going to happen. And then it did happen. How exactly did it happen? Like, what forces came together to win her the mayor election?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been, trying to figure that out, for the longest, because we were sitting at this table during election night, watching the results come in, and it was kind of unbelievable about how many people crossed over from parties, from the Republican Party and as independent, typically who normally lean Republican or conservative to support Mayor Deegan. Now, with that being said, what you're going to have now is people giving her enough time, a grace period, so to speak. Typically, when people look at the first 100 days, it's defined by the mayor's budget, which we'll see here in a couple of weeks. And that'll be sort of the barometer of what you get for how people perceive the term going forward. And I think it's important for Mayor Deegan to look at the things that sort of help define a mayor in the early stages. One, the relationship with city council, as Dan just mentioned, and two, how you meet the priorities of the budget. The budget's priorities are typically, especially in the first term, derived from the mayor's campaign promises, the campaign priorities. And so we expect to see the priorities being addressed, like Hannah mentioned, and addressed in a way that the public can see that there's clearly a definition from the campaign. There's a connection from the campaign to on-the-ground work. And it'll take some time for the administration to sort of fill out these positions the day-to-day stuff. But as long as they're pointed in the right direction, on the direction that signals that we're working on the priorities that we promised you during our campaign, she should get an opportunity to fill out that first 100 days in a successful way.
Do you all feel like this, a Democratic mayor being, and I should clarify when I said well, I didn't think that Donna was going to win. It was because she was a Democratic candidate, not because I think that Donna's a great candidate, but because she had that big D behind her that she was not going to move forward. So do you think that there's a change in the air in Jacksonville, but in the state of Florida that maybe there is a blue wave coming?
I think that it's somewhat Jacksonville specific in some ways, because in a lot of the coverage that I've been reading, even whenever national outlets were talking about this Jacksonville race, what I think that some of them may have failed to mention is that it had as much to do with Donna's campaign as it did with her opponent, Daniel Davis's, and what regular voters were seeing. Regular voters, if they turn on their television and they see a lot of negative attack advertisements, that may turn them off. And so I think that it was more of a Jacksonville-specific campaign.
And you cannot discount what City Hall did when she tried to get, or her nonprofit tried to get the permit for the Mother's Day 5K, and then literally at the last moment, City Hall realized this was publicity handed right on a silver platter to Donna Deegan's campaign, whereas if they just let it go, nobody would have talked. So when she got permission to do it, or her agency, her nonprofit did, that was a little more good publicity for her. I was at her election night party. It was quite an excitable, fun thing. From 5 minutes after 7, when those first numbers came through, there was this thrill through the room, and that didn't quit. Whereas I'm looking on the TV monitor at Mr. Daniels' campaign, and it looked positively empty and dark. I know it was a bigger room, but I know there was a different mood there versus Donna, and I think that's the mood that was all the way through.
All right, so we're going to take a call from Stanley on the north side. Stanley, give me what you're thinking. Keep it brief and beautiful.
Absolutely. I support Donna, absolutely, as long as she stands with her campaign promises, especially when it comes to the underserved community. Too often, leadership are more concerned about the 2%ers than the community. Well, Jacksonville has a appalling concern about the underserved communities, and I'm just not talking about the African American community. I'm talking about throughout the city. When it comes to quality of life in Jacksonville, it's a very post quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can call us at 549-2837 or tweet us at FC on air. Email us at First Coast Connect at WJCT or message us on First Coast Connect Facebook page. That is a lot of ways to get in touch, so feel free to do it. So guys, what's next on the agenda? We've got there's some issues with former city council member Garrett Dennis, who will serve as the mayor's director of boards and commissions. What happened there?
Well, I did the story yesterday. Apparently, Garrett and his campaign manager made a mistake, and it's tough. If you look at the statute for elections and campaign donations, you can't find anything that says you can't do this. When he lost his race for state representative, he used about $1,700 worth of his campaign funding to donate to two other campaigns, for Joyce Morgan, for property appraiser, and Jimmy Peluso, city council. Apparently, you can't do that, but the statute says you must. It only says you can only donate to a nonprofit or a charity. He got called on that. The first letter came out. He didn't respond to it from the State Department of Elections. The second and third letter came out going to his P.O. box, which he had closed down for his campaign, so it never got handled. And the state got a little snippy in the third one. He talked to them yesterday. He told me that basically he will now get the money back from those two campaigns, and he will donate it to a nonprofit and adjust his paperwork. So it's a minor paperwork issue, but some might say, hey, here's the first member of the Deegan cabinet, so to speak, that had a boo-boo. Sure.
What about the Riverfront Plaza? So that's the former site of the Jacksonville Landing. So I got to tell you guys that, like, I was in California. I had heard rumblings that they were going to do something down there, and I came home and the landing was gone. I was like, wait, what? The landing is I spent so much of my teenage years, I was about to say doing stupid stuff, but yes, that's exactly what I was doing, is doing stupid stuff at the landing, and now it's gone. So what's the progress of the landing right now? Or excuse me, of the Riverfront Plaza?
Well, Hannah and I both watched that thing come down from the Times Union offices. We'd look out the back window and watch piece by piece go down. But
Then your office came down.
Right.
well, yeah, our old office, which is now a condominium and other stuff. But
That's another thing to change. I look, guys, I go away for a little bit and you mess it all up. Like, what are you doing?
you're the
Come on.
catalyst.
It's different here.
Things come
me.
down, but they haven't come back up. Yeah.
Like, what is that about?
Well, very simply, they took down the landing. They finally came up with a park plan for it, Riverfront Plaza. Phase 1 is supposed to start on Monday. We hear there's going to be an official groundbreaking, but they were going to hold it on before the swearing-in ceremony for Donna and the city council and the 4th of July, and someone got smart and said, that's where people stand. That's where people park. We can't do that. And sure enough, on Wednesday morning when I went down there, they were getting rid of the porta potties from the fireworks display, and the signs, the electronic signs, finally went up Wednesday afternoon. That's starting on the 20th, Independent Drive in that area, and 2 side streets, parts of those will be shut down through Christmas-ish as construction begins. No, it does not include the JAX sculpture on the Main Street Bridge side.
Should it
That's
says
still under,
JX.
or LERP or whatever,
Lex.
or LAX. That's still under discussion. The artist just attended things. That's all the city will say. Hopefully, if there's a news conference on Monday, we will have the chance to ask a few more questions about when, where. My favorite idea of that is there is a cafe with a playground on the roof. In the second phase, there's a beer garden.
Yeah.
They first of all, the public is still by and large confused by this project because it looked different a few times. We do have a rendering.
Yeah, I saw a rendering with a I don't know what it was, like a silver sculpture
It's
that
supposed to say Jax, but it looks like it says Lex or whatever you.
that
Or
does
LERP.
not that
Whatever you
does not
interpreted.
look like. Listen, I know I'm supposed to keep my opinion to myself, but I'm going to be opinionated. That does not look like it says Jax.
Well, you're not any different than most people in the community. There's a lot of confusion around what the identity of this project is, and so as this as the ground is finally broken, perhaps the public will be able to see what is being made of this this idea that was rendered out a few times.
So
with some of
who's
the
in
commercial-
charge of that? Who's making those decisions about silver weird Jacksonville symbols?
what's-
That I think is the DIA mostly, and they did say recently that the artist, who's an Orlando-based artist who also designed the Bean in Chicago, has spent time in Jacksonville in recent months. Apparently, he went to the River Jams to get to know Jacksonville better and has since tweaked the design, but we haven't seen those tweaks yet. So we shall see. Also, they're trying to raise private funding for it. It's apparently supposed to cost about $18 million.
Wow.
So part of the reason they have the artist in town to get to know people, I think, is to move towards this fundraising effort to try to get private donors to pitch in to build this gigantic statue.
I hate to say it, it looks like the inflatable Mylar letters that you can get for parties. Maybe that should just be flown there in the meantime.
I
would say
would agree.
Just a reminder, if you are looking to see what the landing area used to look like, we're just watching an NFL game when they're broadcasting for Jacksonville. They always show the old landing in the aerial shots. For some reason, they haven't. NFL hasn't updated this footage of the Jacksonville.
So Duval County Public Schools is looking to cut costs, but where? Claire, you recently investigated this. What'd you find?
So this is the first of a series we're doing in Jacksonville today about the superintendent search and kind of big questions that the next superintendent is going to have to answer. And one of those is this question around the transportation budget. Dr. Green, back in April, she said, we can't survive if we continue at this rate with how much we spend on transportation. The district is saying they spend significantly more than other large districts in Florida. That's partly just because of our geographical land area, but also because of our history with court-ordered desegregation and the district not voluntarily desegregating, that they had buses for magnet schools all over the city as a requirement of that court order. So now the district is saying we're spending too much on busing and we need to find cuts, and they're looking specifically at magnet schools because those are the more expensive routes. Now, there's a lot of issues about whether or not that would actually save money. I think there's some school board members that are concerned that magnet parents would just pull their kids and put them in charter schools, which would lose the district money for those students. There's concerns about whether it would cause schools to become more segregated. And the district is saying, we're spending way too much. We have to do something. So in the short run, they're combining bus stops for 2 magnet schools in Arlington. They're thinking about cutting routes that have 5 riders or 10 riders or less. But there could be bigger changes on the horizon for magnet transportation.
So what happens to those kids that are on the routes that are, 5 people or less? Do they reroute buses that have more people on them?
No, they won't reroute buses. It's then ends up being up to the parents to figure out how to get their kids to school. They could drive them to another bus stop that's, a little bit further away, drive them to the school, or take them to a different school. And a lot of the parents I talked to said, they don't have time to drive their kids to school. A lot of times these schools are 30, 40 minutes away. And so they're saying they would probably consider charters, do all virtual, other options if they didn't have the transportation. Now, this did happen once before, about 10 years ago. The district took away magnet transportation, and then they reversed it 2 years later. But at that time, some parents paid for like a private shuttle.
Yeah.
But I think that raises some equity questions too, if you can only privately fund your transportation to go to a public magnet school.
Yeah. It feels like it's a situation that there's no really good answers because the cost is going up. But also, Jacksonville is such a large city that it makes sense that it costs a lot of money to move around
Right.
and get people where they need to be.
And one of the sort of, I think, less obvious solutions that won't immediately, save money, but I think some school board members have talked about in the long run is bringing up neighborhood schools, improving the quality of neighborhood schools, improving the education, their rankings, so that parents want to send their kids to neighborhood schools, and that's less expensive than the district busing a kid across town to a magnet school.
Or giving the neighborhood schools, students who can attend in the neighborhood schools more choice to opportunity to attend those schools. This has been a problem forever. There's bus routes because you can have a parent who lives in the northwest side of town, and they chose a magnet on the southeast side of town, right? And the district is sort of obligated to transport that student there, and the transportation map has never really made a whole lot of sense to a whole lot of people. And I think that the former superintendent at that particular point, when she said that we got to have some tough conversations, said that this is a problem we need to figure out a different way of solving, not only from a transportation standpoint, but from a financial standpoint as well.
And let's add the issue as a grandparent who with his wife, grandma, is putting our grandchild on a school bus now, even through summer school. It was really nasty last year. There were a lack of bus drivers. Buses didn't know how to get to the neighborhood. Now our grandson is going to a school on the other side of town, and he's on the bus for 90 minutes in both directions. So there's issues right now with the bus system, not even figuring in how to transport magnet students. There's not enough drivers. There's multiple private companies running. There's issues with some of those bus drivers and aides that we've heard over the years. So it's a tough one. And I can also remember being the old guy in the room that magnet schools used to be the crown jewel of the Duval County school system.
Sure.
With magnet fairs, and let's get our kids there. And now it sounds like there's some effort somewhere maybe to curtail what may be the bright, shining educational centers in the city because $1 million or $1.5 million is too much to spend. In a budget the size of the county school system, $1 million doesn't sound like a lot. I hate to say it.
When we're talking about the education system here in Jacksonville, do we know what's going on with the hunt for new superintendent?
So the district has hired the Florida School Board Association as an outside consultant for a superintendent search, but there are 6 or 7 Florida school districts that are also looking for a superintendent right now. There's been sort of this great exodus of Florida superintendents over the past few years. So I think there's, some questions about how many great candidates the district is going to get. There was some rumblings that the Hillsborough County Superintendent, Addison Davis, who was formerly at Clay County, recently quit, was eyeing the job in Duval. The NAACP sent a letter to the district last week saying, don't predetermine who the superintendent's going to be. It sort of seemed like maybe Addison Davis had been quietly promised the job when he quit Hillsborough, I think was some of the fears that we're hearing in the community. The district is saying, no, we haven't picked anyone. We haven't opened the position yet. We're going to take community feedback and do a formal process. People are going to apply. So that's where we're at. The application hasn't been posted yet, so we don't have any candidates yet.
The only way to see that is to see who applies for the job, because previously the district hired an outside firm to do a search for when we got Diana Green, and this time they didn't really. So
yeah,
it's a whole
last
different...
time they hired like a national
Right,
firm
right.
to find Dr. Green. This is a statewide firm who they said was cheaper and faster to hire,
Right.
but
and it
not as national.
sort of gives the impression, excuse me, that they have their sights on someone and make it easier for a path for that person to get the job. I think, again, we like to talk in terms of what the public says and what the public thinks. It would seem that if as part of the public process to just to make it known that when we see some good candidates out there that we like to try to attract to this job, versus we're going to be totally transparent about this, and we don't have anyone in mind. We know that they probably have some folks in mind that they like to see come to Jacksonville because of the talent level of these superintendents. They are the good ones are in high demand.
Yeah, and
They're
also
high demand.
we are the feel of the state is very different from the feel of the state when it comes specifically
Politically.
to education and
Right.
politically. We're in a very different phase of Florida history, so to speak, when it comes to education in the state and who would be attracted to taking that job on in the state as it is right now under the leadership that it's in. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and a lot of people are concerned, or some people I've spoken with are concerned that the school district, the superintendent role does not go the path of the college president, where
Right.
you're starting to see these, these politically connected people get these jobs as a part of an agenda, like you see on the college level. So that's a concern, but you can bet your bottom dollar that the ones who are very talented, the superintendents out there who are currently employed, it is a very public process. If they are trying to move from one state or from one district to the next, somebody's going to find out, and that part becomes open. It becomes public very quickly. And it makes it tougher for you to get that person at a rate where the district can actually afford them.
And we've got a caller on the line, Eric from Arlington. Eric, please keep it beautiful and keep it brief. Thank you, sir.
I don't know how beautiful my remark's going to be, but it's pretty brief. And this is sort of a general political thought that I'd like to get your panel's opinion about. It's not going to matter who's using what bathroom when it's 115 degrees outside. It's not going to matter which child is enrolled in which upcoming, track event. Transgender child is enrolled in which track event when half the people in the country are homeless and on the move. I don't understand. When I listen to the news and watch the news, I'm befuddled by what leads. I'm befuddled by what people are talking about. There are really big issues, existential issues, to our very species and to many other species for that matter, such as climate change, wealth inequality, and so on, the trend toward homelessness, etc. And we're talking all the time about who's using what bathroom and transgender track events. So since you guys are in the media, this is sort of directed at you. What is the deal with the priorities here? Thanks for taking my call.
Eric, thank you so much for calling in. I would just say that, what you have to do is you have to, think about this in the sense of, when people talk about the media, we tend to, label one brand on everybody, right? So, you think about the big news organizations, New York Times, CNN, Fox, blah, 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 blah. And everybody thinks that's the media and everything falls under it. I think that the things that we've been talking about just today affect Jacksonvillians. I know, I heard that it's now Jacksons, but I like Jacksonvillians. That's my term. I'm using it. But I think that the things that we talked about today affect everyday people And I agree with you that like we spend a whole lot of time worried about like where people are going to go to the bathroom and not talking about climate change, which is real, which is affecting us, which we should be talking about. But I would also say that a lot of our politicians decide to talk about these side things that and make them important. And when you are in the news, like our job is to report on the news. So if a politician is talking about these sideshow things, you know, it's a part of our job to cover it. But also, I would say, and I agree with you that like we do not talk about climate change enough. And you can see it happening all around us. We do not talk about inequity and how you're watching homeless populations grow. I can tell you I just came from California, and the tent cities there at times can be intense. So I get it. I don't disagree with you what you're saying. I'm just saying that like when we're talking about the media on a whole, it's not just one uniform group of people. We don't all get up in the morning and get our marching orders from somebody saying you will only talk about bathroom issues. And so this conversation that we're doing today is about things that affect Jacksonville. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And that's what this show has always done. That's what Melissa Ross did. And that's what WJCT will continue to do.
I would say, Al, that that from the caller's description and perception, both we have two political parties that one is focused on cultural wars right now, cultural issues like bathrooms, and the other party seems to be trying to focus on policy issues that they believe that'll help move the average American forward, like student loan forgiveness, right? So you're having a conversation about culture wars, and it can be exhausting when people are talking about things that we know perhaps aren't really real to most people in the country, right? But people feel what's happening in their pocketbooks. So if they get the advantage of have their student loan forgiven, perhaps they may be able to avoid being in a situation where they're homeless. And so, trying to define these issues, whether they're cultural or straight policy issues, is difficult in the environment that we're in, because we know the media operates in silos today. And so there's not a whole lot of ebb and flow with how that information is being disseminated.
Yeah, and I would go ahead, Dan.
The top stories this morning many times on NPR were the fact that we had our second day worldwide of the highest average worldwide temperature. And I'll tell you, I freaked out a bit on Saturday when I saw 101 degrees on my car thermometer, and it was only June, July. I mean, now I foresee that we're going to have homeless issues. They're out there in the heat. There's going to be people passing because of heat. We have heat advisories. At some point, some hot weather shelters will have to be opened nationwide. 114 degrees somewhere on the West Coast, I heard yesterday. I think we are talking about this, but it's the other issues, obviously, that come from that heat, the homeless, the migrants that are facing this, jobs that may be growing because of this or failing because of this.
Right. And there's also, definitely homeless people are struggling with this, but also there are a lot of people who, are living in poverty that are going to struggle with this as well. People who don't have AC in their houses, or have little window units, or like window units trying to conquer this type of heat. Just it is not getting it. Do you guys know if any of the homeless shelters have opened up like the cooling stations?
Not that I've seen in the emails. Obviously, that's means we got to hit the phones and ask.
Yeah.
I believe we had a story on cooling stations. I'm going to look it up right now.
I would say, and Charles, to your earlier point, I agree with you. I do think that like there are culture wars happening, but I also think that there's a segment of the population that believes that those culture wars are they are a threat. Mm-hmm. Like it's an actual, like I think that the way a lot of people look at like climate change as being a threat, there are people who look at like where our schools are right now and, basing their religious beliefs and morality, they believe that is an imminent threat to America as well, right? So like you've got two sides that are looking at different issues and putting priority on different issues, and those two things kind of come to a head.
So we grew up post civil rights era, right? And all of a sudden we're being told that diversity, equity, inclusion is bad, as a cultural thing, that one side is sort of choosing to, have issue with. But we always thought that, the diversity in culture made us stronger and a way to sort of, to get to a place where people can see that or be, have a way to express themselves in that environment would be to develop programs and opportunities for people to come together and know more about each other. But now we're being told that's bad, and folks are finding a way. At least some elected officials are looking for ways to erase that from our body politic and from policies, and through policy, make it something that's that we no longer celebrate or can include in the business world.
I'm going to go to the phones. We got Jim in Orange Park. Jim, please keep it brief and keep it beautiful.
Thanks for taking my call, guys. Hey, and girls, one quick thought. It's interesting how the last Duval County school board was a national search, and this is now just a statewide. And as one of the board members there said on your panel, that I'm sure they have somebody in mind here in the state. As a retired school teacher here in Florida, I just don't see how anybody that's qualified and talented would at this point in time want to leave a state and come here and trying to administer a public school system where the current governor and his political staff are just not allowing schools and school districts to teach our kids. Regardless, as a teacher, I always kept my political and religious and all of those aspects out of the classroom. We taught empirical data and the scientific method, and we let our kids come to conclusions. And I would also, when I would talk to parents, I would say, we want our kids to be independent thinkers. And, sometimes they might disagree with what their parents, what their norms and mores are as they go through the school system, whether it be elementary, middle, high school, and even in college. And if we want our kids to continue to be independent thinkers and learners, our teachers got to be able to do the things in the classroom that we've always done in the past. And one last thing regarding a great session on the climate change there. I was looking at the news yesterday, and one of the things that affects, especially in the Jacksonville area, are all of those pool closures. A lot of our inner city kids, that have relied on those, especially in the summertime to keep cool. And I know some of them are starting to open now, but heck, we go back to school here in about 3 weeks. So I know that with Mayor Deegan in here, that her and her staff are going to do whatever it takes here in the next 4 years to change the political climate here, and I'm just grateful for that. Thanks for everything you guys do on the air, and I appreciate it. Thank you,
Jim. Thanks so much for calling in.
I'll just make a quick clarification. I may have misspoke earlier. The district is saying that the Florida School Board Association is doing a national search. It's just a Florida-based organization, which is why I think there's some impression that it's more of a Florida-based search because they hired a national organization. But the district would probably contest that, saying they are searching nationally, but there is sort of this community impression that Mr. Griggs was sharing.
Yeah, but it feels like, because this is an organization based in Florida, it sort of feels to some folks in the public, especially NAACP, that this is something that they have a little bit more control over than they did with a national or private national search firm.
To that listener's point, I think any candidate who might be interested in a Florida superintendent position is going to find that their creativity potential is stifled by some of the more recent state laws.
Right.
There's so many things that say you cannot do this, your teachers cannot do that. Why come into a state where you can't come up with a new idea that maybe does something cool because it might be an issue with the state?
We're going to take a caller, JD in the Beaches. JD, you know the deal. Keep it brief and keep it beautiful.
Yes, I'm a retired renewable energy executive. A little over a year ago, I had put in to Mayor Curry's office a proposal to turn those little tram stations downtown, a little tram that we have, into solar-powered cool-down stations. If you look at the rooftop of the way it's designed, it looks as though those little windows on the top couldn't be any more perfect to put solar panels in the place of them to power little spritzers to be able to cool down those particular areas in the middle of the 100-degree heat.
That's a great idea.
For people like homeless people that don't have a cool down, or people that are runners, that we need a cool down spot. We have them stationed all over downtown. It couldn't be any more perfect, and the design of the thing couldn't be any more perfect. When they first built it, I proposed that they replace all that with solar panels as well, as opposed to those little windows that look like solar panels. Anyway, love your program. My kudos to Melissa. I've been listening for 14, 15 years. Glad to see it rolling forward, and glad to see her being part of Mayor Deegan's office. I will be re-proposing this to Mayor Deegan. Thanks, and have a great day.
You know, it's interesting, Al, that there are some structures in the city of Jacksonville that if you look at them, you say, boy, that looks like there should be solar panels there. Guess what? They were supposed to be years ago, but cost cutting saw those panels disappear. Panels are cheaper now. There's 1 out of every 6 homes in my neighborhood has solar panels now. You can power a bunch of stuff with just a bus shelter's worth of panels. So, yeah, it should be looked at.
Yeah, it sounds like there are solutions, specifically when we're talking about climate change, that we can make on the city level. It just takes a little bit of imagination to rethink how we've been doing things.
Yeah, and it also takes people like the caller who, from the public purview, they just have ideas that you can share, and you never know. And this is what commissions and task force are for, right? So people can. Folks from the public square can have an opportunity to share their ideas, and you never know where innovation may come from.
Yeah. In fact, JEA actually had a solar panel system at its downtown office, and one of its employees had an electric car and would charge his car from that system. I don't know if it still exists. I know JEA, JTA all have their hybrids and plug-in electrics that they're using right now to try to save. But I wonder what happened to that solar system. And we have a solar farm just north of the Florida-Georgia line on US 17. I don't know what it's feeding, but obviously there's plans to do that on a larger scale elsewhere. Florida's the sunshine state. Let's use the sunshine.
I will say, for people like that caller who have ideas, now's really the time. I mean, Mayor Donna Deegan's transition team is meeting. They're having public meetings. You can find those on the website. You can go. There is public comment. I mean, she's out here saying that she wants the community's input. So that's the perfect time to give it to her. Additionally, whether it's on climate change, cultural issues, whatever, you got to get out there and vote. So especially looking at all my young people out there, if you've got ideas, it's one of the best ways to get them out.
Yeah, and I would just say that earlier in the week, I spoke to a spokesperson from JEA about how to keep your house cool. That is a huge thing. You can go to the website and look it up, WJCT.org, and you can hear that interview, and he gives you tips on how to keep your house cool and how to, keep your energy bill as low as possible in these extremely hot days. Well, it is coming close to that time, and now it's time for us to do the lightning round. Ooh, I love it when a plan comes together like that. Thank you, sir. All right, so lightning round. Dan, what you got for me?
Well, first of all, let's not forget that activist Ben Frazier, who passed away a week ago, his viewing is tonight at the Bethel Church in Jacksonville. Visitation from 4:30 to 7, and then the funeral tomorrow at 11 o'clock on Saturday. For a happier point, one of the city's largest car events is the monthly Caffeine and Octane. It's 8 to 11 o'clock tomorrow at the Avenues Mall. 1,000-plus cars. Yeah, I'm going to be there, sunstroke or not.
Right on. Claire, what you got for me?
I'll shout out 2 stories. Our summer WJCT news intern, Joshua Pantano, had a good story this week on the cooling stations in Jacksonville. That's at WJCT News. And then Jacksonville Today's Will Brown had an excellent story on Curtis's Law. New law just started July 1st that came out of mom's activism in Jacksonville.
Nice. Shout out to the intern. Go. And Hannah, what you got for me?
So the Jacksonville redistricting saga is not over. Obviously, the court case has been finished. The plaintiffs got their map in place. However, plaintiffs have put in a request with the judge to redo school board districts for odd-numbered seats that normally would not have been up for another almost 4 years. So that's definitely something to keep track
of. And Charles, what you got for me, man?
Yeah, I was going to reiterate Dan's point around Ben Frazier for, just kind of on a happy note, knowing that Ben was a giant in the community.
Amen.
And he did, so much for Jacksonville in terms of activism and bringing a lot of things. And we probably wouldn't have the redistricting fight and the settlement without Ben Frazier's activism.
Well, that is it for the lightning round. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. And Dan, you are definitely going to get a nickname before before my tenure here is over. You're going to.
That's it. I'm tearing up my contract.
No, you can't. You're stuck here. You're stuck with me, just like Jacksonville is. Sorry, buddy.
I wouldn't say that's stuck.
We'll see. Thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Al.
Thank you.
Florida Roundup coming up.
Join me, Dr. Joe Servin, for What's Health Got to Do with It, a weekly program that examines where and how healthcare intersects with your daily life. Saturdays at 4 p.m. and Sundays at 9 p.m. on WJCT News 89.9.
For the best music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, tune in to 89.9 HD3, the WJCT app, or jacksmusic.org. We've got your music on Anthology on 89.9 HD3. Northeast Florida artists are making noise that's reverberating across the country, and the Jacksonville Music Experience is your ticket to the local scene. Music reviews, curated playlists, music history, concert recommendations, and profiles of local artists, all put together by our team of local contributors. The Jacksonville Music Experience plays it local and plays it loud. Visit jacksmusic.org to read and hear more.
It's March of 1863, and Jacksonville is occupied by Black Union troops.
That little window of time has paid big dividends in the history of not only Jacksonville, but America.
3 weeks in Jacksonville that changed the Civil War. Hear the full story come to life on Bygone Jacks, Our Unsung History, a podcast from WJCT Public Media. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
This week on Science Friday, that pesky wasp at your weekend picnic? Don't reach for the rolled up newspaper just yet.
In a world without wasps, we would have a lot of other insects that we possibly find almost as irritating as wasps are. So we should be really celebrating the wasp and thanking them.
Why, wasps deserve your thanks. That's on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
This afternoon at 3 here on WJCT News 89.9.
A victory for free speech or a setback in the fight against disinformation?
Everybody should be able to have a say in the town square, including the virtual town square, and the government doesn't have any business telling people what they can see and hear in that virtual town square.
We look at the fallout after a federal judge limits the Biden administration's contact with social media firms, plus solve the biggest stories on the Friday News Roundup. Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
And we're back. You're listening to First Coast Connect. This is Al Letson. And a couple things to tell you about the Florida Roundup today at noon. In the Florida Roundup, we'll take a closer look at the heat wave scorching most of the Sunshine State. Then we've got the Med Show on this week. What's health got to do with it? We examine some of the latest healthcare policies and what they mean to you. Tomorrow afternoon at 4 and Sunday night at 9. Thanks so much to our panel. And up next, he's going to play us out. We've got a live performance from Connor Hickey, who will be performing at the Comer this evening. Connor, you good?
Yeah.
All right. So why don't you take us on out, man?
All right.
And a fair chance
That was Connor Hickey, who will be performing at the Cummer this evening. And to talk to us about it is Kim During, Director of Learning and Engagement at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens. Kim, you there?
I am. How are you?
I'm good. I think I mispronounced your last name. How do you pronounce it? I want to make sure I get it right.
It's Kim Kuda Dring.
Got it. All right. So next time, I got you.
No worries, friend. No worries.
All right. So tell us, what's going on at the Cummer tonight?
Oh, we have Summer at the Cummer. So this is the first in 10 evenings part of this series we call Summer at the Cummer. This is one of the First Coast's most highly anticipated community events of the summer. We bring people together from across the region and beyond to enjoy a free Friday evening of live music. We have art-making activities, family fun, all at the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens, and it's a really great way to kickstart every weekend this summer.
Excellent. And so this is going on all summer long. And can you tell me a little bit about like the different things that you're going to have there?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things is during Summer at the Cummer, admission to the entire museum and all of the activities is free every Friday night, 4 to 9 p.m., and that's starting this evening through September 8th. So we all know summer is a time for family and friends, and Summer at the Cummer is a great way for people to have fun, relax, enjoy a date night, bring their friends, explore the entire museum, get creative with hands-on art-making activities. We have lawn games. We have live music sets, different artists each Friday evening. There's also food and beverage available for purchase, so people can really make an evening of the entire event called Summer at the Cummer.
You will definitely see me there. If not tonight, then one Friday very soon.
Please, through September 8th. So we hope to see you at multiple evenings.
All right. You will definitely see me. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about it.
Absolutely. If people would like more information, cummermuseum.org is our website. We have all of the music lineups, and there's many creative talents in Jacksonville that we'll be featuring on our various stages at the museum.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that's our program. Thanks to all our guests and callers. Our executive producer is David Luckin. Our senior producer is Heaven Schatz. And our director is Brady Crodum. With technical help from Morning Edition Hope, Michelle Corum. If you have questions or comments about First Coast Connect, send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. I'm Al Letson, and you've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT 89.9 Jacksonville.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT.